There's been a lot of talk about the end of the old strategic ambiguity about Taiwan. President Biden has gone up to the line pretty close to say, no, we should maybe explicitly, pledge to defend Taiwan, although that's been walked back. Is that ambiguity ending? Are we moving towards a much more explicit, promise to defend Taiwan on the part of the U.S., either alone or in partnership with others?
I think that U.S. strategic ambiguity can be kept, but needs to be clarified a little more to have better understanding of the concept itself. Strategic ambiguity is not ambiguous about its aim; it's ambiguous about the ways and means to achieve that aim. So the clear goal of the strategic ambiguity is to still preserve the stability of the Taiwan Strait and support the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences. But the way to achieve that aim, whether U.S. would come to defend Taiwan and provide arms and provide forces there, that's sort of left unclear. But I think it can be sort of articulated, and I think by doing so, support Taiwan's sort of vibrant democracy, that if they do not provoke and do not act and then provoke Chinese invasion by themselves, but still, try to preserve their own democracy and then do not declare de jure independence and do their own defense efforts, then I think has back and support by like-minded countries if they face unprovoked belligerence from the mainland. So I think those conversations should happen. And it's very natural that U.S. is having, or even Japan is having that conversation. I think Japan also has to keep in mind what's clear from that policy and what's not clear. So that's just my 2 cents.
Professor Mori, what about you? You mentioned Taiwan as being quite central to the change in Japan's defense posture and how the alliance is going to work around that, freeing up the United States to focus on Taiwan while Japan can defend itself. I mean, does that suggest a much more explicit commitment? And where will Japan fit in a contingency?
Basically, Japan's central role would be to defend itself and support U.S. operations. And this is going to be critical for the United States, any U.S. operations to defend Taiwan. So that is the central role, I think, for Japan. Moving forward, I think the United States will continue to support Taiwan's effort to build up its own defense capabilities and also resilience. And together, between Japan and the United States, we will probably have to do 2 things. One is to deter a sort of a short, sharp war to take over Taiwan. And the second is also to demonstrate our resilience so that we will be able to withstand even a protracted war. And this is going to be a major, major challenge, not only for Japan, but also for the United States as well. And here, I think we have to work not only on the hardware side, by hardening bases and infrastructure and so forth, but also build upon the public opinion. And it's going to be too late after a crisis erupts and you start talking how Taiwan security is going to be important for Japanese security. I think there needs to be a much more deeper debate about what Taiwan security means for Japan. Japanese public will probably have to think about how the world would change if Taiwan falls under Chinese control. And that is going to change dramatically Japan's security environment. And I think the United States will be in a much more difficult position to defend Japan, and also South Korea, by the way. And so it's going to be a sort of a dramatic reduction in Japanese security if that happens. And so, there needs to be much more public awareness on this issue to build up resilience on the public opinion part. And those 2 efforts will probably have to move forward. 2 outstanding issues. One is, how should we be dealing with Chinese military coercion against Taiwan, which is already happening. I don't think we have a sort of a strategy to deal with that kind of counter coercion.
You're talking about pressure short of...
pressure short of actual attack, yeah, exactly. And right now, Chinese military aircraft make incursions into the southwest air defense identification zone of Taiwan. And every time there's some incident or an effort on the part of the United States and Taiwan to enhance their defense cooperation, China does that. and it remains a significant challenge. But we don't really have a plan how to deal with that. And so, one of the possible argument that can be made about how to deal with this is that if China continues this kind of military coercion, the relationship between U.S., Japan, and Taiwan will have to evolve. Meaning that this is the second outstanding issue, which is about how do we communicate with the Taiwanese and cooperate with Taiwan in order to prepare for any sort of contingency. And we don't have any official dialogue or strategic dialogue with Taiwan. But if the current pattern continues and begins to cause serious, significant adverse effects on Taiwan, I think there needs to be, at some point, a new step that would open up new avenues for much deeper and stronger defense cooperation between Japan, United States, and Taiwan. And I hope it doesn't come to that, but policymakers and defense planners will inevitably have to think about that. And even before there is any sort of major incident, this issue is already serious enough. So if current Chinese behavior continues, I think there should be under the surface, completely classified setting. There should be a sort of a security dialogue in the United States, perhaps, between Japan, United States, and Taiwan, maybe. And also perhaps involve Australia as well, perhaps. Yeah. So that would be my argument for this issue. Yeah.
One of the many things that would come into play in that is, of course, U.S. domestic politics and the appetite for something like that. You talked about, Dr. Teraoka, divisions in the U.S. society, being perhaps at the top of the list of destabilizing risks to the alliance right now. Those divisions are about to be tested again in an election in November. We've been through one Trump administration. I'm not going to ask you to predict the outcome of the election, but if you could talk broadly about the risks that it presents, what might happen if we have a second Trump administration, and what the continuing strength of that movement in American society, which includes a more isolationist way of thinking. I mean, what does that mean for the long-term prospects of the security environment and the alliance?
Yeah, I think the first Trump presidency, Japan managed to sort of fend off direct attack because of good partnership between Mr. Abe and Mr. Trump. But I think under the surface, people who managed that partnership knew how tenuous that could have been, right? Because if two leaders don't get along, then that's over. And then it wasn't sustainable way of managing partnership, but that was almost the only way. So next presidency, we would have to rethink again how to manage that, because it's I don't know if our prime minister can forge the same type of partnership with Trump, or Trump would behave the same way as he did in the past. So it's really hard to say how Trump will engage in foreign policy. It depends on who surrounds Trump and what kind of sort of domestic political environment he faces at the time. But one thing I can say is that U.S. has the separation of power, and that's sort of saving grace sometimes, because you can slow down the initiative by a president sometimes by engaging with congressional members and a federal government. So I think many allies will continue to engage with United States and then try to shape the direction of U.S. foreign policy. That's sort of the way that U.S. allows sort of voices from other countries to be involved in open society and shape U.S. foreign policy. So that's, I would say, is going to happen. And that's what I think other allies will continue to do. But last time, I think Australia, South Korea, or continental European powers had much more difficult time than Japan in dealing with President Trump. Next time, I think that just reinforces the notion that foreign policy led by Trump is not just one-off thing. It might continue to be like that going forward. So that just necessitates these countries, allies, to work among each other and try to hedge a little bit. But working among each other and continuing current foreign policy will still be the sort of direction we have to. And then we will try to shape the US foreign policy to the extent we can, but that's sort of the way we are going to work with what comes out of elections that will be decided by people in America. And then that also includes Taiwan. Sometimes people in Taiwan feels like they are just deliberatives of US domestic politics or Sino-US relationship. But I think for Japan, Taiwan security, as Mori Sensei was saying, it's not easily divisible from Japanese security. So I think as Japan works with its like-minded partners, it would also have to work with Taiwan, and it will have to continue to involve Taiwan in various security framework or economic frameworks to the extent we can, even if Trump gets elected again.